Coming. Today is Thursday, April 1st. Happy April Fool's Day to everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. This is the Greater Tampa Realtors Government Affairs panelist discussion. Today we are excited to have two very esteemed guests with us. We have Lynn Gray, who is the chairperson for the Hillsborough County School Board, and we have Addison Davis, who is the superintendent of the Hillsborough County School District. Thank you both very much for attending today. We have a jam-packed session, so we're excited to have you both here. We've got some great questions throughout, and then we'll take some Q&A from the audience as well. Before we get started, I would like to thank Greater Tampa Realtors and the Board of Directors, led by President Ellie Lambert this year, as well as our Government Affairs Committee, including Jacob Riel, the Government Affairs Staff Liaison. Thank you all for helping to set this up. My name is Nico Hohman. I'm the Director of Commercial Real Estate at Tomlin Commercial. I serve as your 2021 Chair for the Government Affairs Committee. If this is your first time at a Greater Tampa Realtors event or Government Affairs Committee panel discussion, we welcome you. Thank you very much for coming. Our job as this committee is to be the liaison between our local, state, and federally elected officials to let them know what's going on in the real estate industry, but then also to hear from them what their needs are and how we as real estate agents, as members of the community, can be more involved here in our local area. So with that, I'd like to introduce both of our speakers. We'll start with Lynn Gray. Lynn Gray has been a teacher and an instructor in Hillsborough County for over 26 years. She's been named Teacher of the Year and Peer Counselor of the Year as well. She spent 16 years as an instructor and department head in Hillsborough County Schools, and 9 years as an instructor and department head at Jesuit High School, where I happen to have the privilege of having Lynn Gray as a teacher way back when. She's taught AP US History, Advanced US History, Psychology, and Global Studies for mostly high school students. So Lynn Gray, thank you very much for attending and welcome. Addison Davis, he is the superintendent of Hillsborough County Schools. Before arriving here in Hillsborough County, he served as a superintendent in the country and served over 120,000 students there. He's worked for the Duval County School Board District for 18 years, starting as a teacher and moving up his way from assistant principal, and executive as well. So Addison Davis, thank you very much for attending today.
Thank you.
We will start kind of big picture perspective and then kind of work our way down to some of the smaller, more minutiae issues with the district. But starting with Lynn, can you kind of give us a big picture perspective? Where do we stand right now from the perspective of the Hillsborough County Schools? Kind of give us both the good and the bad, big picture level. Where are we today?
Well, and that's a big picture question. And thank you, Nico, and the Greater Tampa Realtors for giving us this opportunity. Right now, we're looking at, the reflection of after COVID, and with since March with our new superintendent, Davis, we, as you all have known, we had to shut our doors and we opened them again in August, but we had a lot of students that have been missing. We started out with 7,000, then it went down to 300 and something. But even so, the big picture is a lot of learning loss. And there's no getting around to that. And as I talked to actually some principals today, I think we're dealing with a lot of mental, and I want to call it trauma, because every socioeconomic situation of a student and their families have gone through strenuous and tenuous times. So we're dealing with that arena as we proceed, and hopefully 100% enrollment the next school year. In a big picture, we're moving through a lot of equity curriculum, new standards that match the demographics, and we'll talk about that. I know it's on one of your questions, but we're looking at the growing amount of Hispanic families and Asian, and basically we have our Black families. We're almost 52% or more of Hispanic and Black families in our entire student population, mixed with other minorities. So the expansion of the curriculum to match the demographics. And you remember, Nico, I taught history, and in global studies. So I think it's a very unique opportunity for us to really get involved, being more intentional as to what we're teaching and to whom. But perhaps, would you like for Superintendent Davis to add to that?
I was just about to say, so yeah, Superintendent Davis, kind of the same question, kind of big picture perspective. Where are we today with Hillsborough County Schools?
Yes, sir. Well, first and foremost, we're a lot better than we were 1 year ago when we had to close 240 schools, 220,000 students, and 25,000 employees on the dime and transition from brick and mortar learning to transition to virtual learning. Openly, like everyone across the state in this nation, we just weren't prepared for a global pandemic. However, we had to, learn the hard way about how to be able to continue to plan and be innovative to make sure we connect with our children so learning loss does not exist. We had to go, we had 28,000 laptops for 220,000 students. We didn't have learning platforms that were sophisticated or big enough to be able to hold all of our students and families at one time. So I had to make sure we pivot and provided the necessary connectivity, the necessary equipment, the necessary learning platform, software, hardware, to make certain that we can learn, can continue to make certain we had instructional momentum to transition from March all the way to in the last school year and as we open this school year. Overall, COVID's had a major impact. We continue to spend millions of dollars on PPE to make certain our children and our adults feel they have a psychologically safe place to learn within our schools. We've done a really nice job making certain that we build connections with our local medical experts, because in this particular time, as we are educators, we didn't know about the pandemic, so we leaned on TGH and USF Help for us to help have and provide expedited assessments for our teachers, COVID assessments, vaccine shots, for them to be able to help with our reopening plans, all to be able to open our doors and provide children with an option of different learning solutions, whether that's choosing brick and mortar, whether that's choosing remote learning or Hillsborough K-12 virtual. But overall, where do we stand? We stand right now with over 70% of our students back in front of our teachers face-to-face. That's 157,000 of our students making that connectivity. We find ourselves openly in continued deficit financially. We're working our way out of it. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we'll continue to make sure we strengthen the core instruction to improve the overall academic health of Hillsborough County as we seek to expand international programs with Cambridge, ACE-IB, international studies, expansion of STEM and STEAM activities to expose our children to science, technology, engineering, math, medical field opportunities so they can develop, grow their talents, prepare them for the future of the fastest growing industry, not only locally, but worldwide. And also being able to make certain we expand visual and performing arts, where we can have students who have the affinity for the art to develop their passions in an environment rich in creativity, and at the same time being able to expand career and technical colleges, allow our children to be exposed to health science, industry, manufacturing, construction, science, technology, social behavior, and also business and educational opportunities. So there's a lot to be excited about in Hillsborough County. I know right now we're going through some very difficult, challenging times from a financial perspective, but overall, we truly understand the need for us to have a thriving educational system, as it is the foundation of all within our community.
Sure, absolutely. Well, both of you, thank you very much for those great answers. Appreciate it. Superintendent Davis, you kind of led me into the next question. So, obviously, COVID kind of really, upended everything that we know about education. It does seem like, things are starting to look a little bit better on the COVID front as more people are vaccinated. More students are coming back into the classroom. But once, the effects, the lingering effects of COVID might be gone, what are still some of those outstanding threats that are facing Hillsborough County schools?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is while we are getting better every single day, we have to understand that when we lost instruction from last March to May, we had a lot of unfinished learning that took place, a lot of core concepts and standards and exposure, especially those who are kindergarten level, who didn't get the necessary essentials to transition from kindergarten to first grade and every grade level looping up to the next. So overall, while our educators and faculties have overcome tremendous difficulties during this pandemic, we've experienced learning loss, which is a reality. And I think that's our biggest challenge right now. How do we expedite learning? How do we stack standards? How do we begin to combat learning loss? And this is all through making certain that we have the necessary assessments and to identify our learning gaps and allow those assessments to inform and prescribe our work, to inform our teaching every single day. And that alongside of the learning loss to make certain our children have the necessary educational foundations to be successful. We have coherent lessons, but we've also had to be able to focus on mental health. That's another challenge that that's been in front of us. Our mental health services that we provide internally and externally to our staff members, to our students, to our families, because we know that as that learning loss took place and the separation have taken place in the pandemic, some of our low-income children, our students with disabilities, our English language learners, they have suffered the most, especially those who are homeless have suffered the most. And we've got to really focus on addressing that gap in order to move successful and move in a comprehensive standpoint.
Perfect. Thank you. And Chairwoman Gray, kind of same question. What are some of those big threats, that are coming and that we're looking out for the next year, 5, 10 years when it comes to Hillsborough County Schools?
Well, I think right now, in the face of what Superintendent Davis has expressed, we're facing a lot of, and this is a good thing, competition. Competition in different types of schools. Be it charter schools, be it, one of a kind, such as, Pepin is exemplary with the ESE population. Patel has a huge scope of a charter school with housing given, and it's starting out with a K-8 model, very popular. But all this is to say, Nico, what we're dealing with is we, as a school district, as the 7th largest in the nation, have to become more competitive, more desirable. What we're looking at is each school has to have an identity. So as Superintendent Davis mentioned, some of the schools will be IB programs. Some of them will be at the stage of the Cambridge. All this means is that they're very much developed in expanding their college centered coursework. Some of these schools will have a very big emphasis on engineering, some aeronautical science, some, will be involved with a lot of the, say, preparing teachers for later jobs. Every school now we're looking at as a competitive engine. And that's very important. And in the business world, isn't that the same? I mean, but we've never been there. I mean, public school was always going to be public schools. So we have the supports, inherently, the social, the mental, and the maintenance and all the other affiliations built into our public school system. But what we do have to have is that marketing piece. Why is our school, or let's just say right near down the road, why is Blake? What makes them better than another school? So that might pop up and compete with us. So we're competing with dollars. Every time a student comes in, I hate to say it, but that represents money in our district. So, this is coming up. I think Senate Bill 48 with the vouchers, giving our citizens more grant money to pick their schools will only make this more accentuated as a force that we really have to wrap our hands around it and make each school the best that we can, and never forget the mental set of the child, social emotional, is just as, if not more important than the academic. So that is something that I don't know if all schools, competitive wise, face that, but we are ready to address that. So there's my competitive talk.
Fair enough. Well, that's perfect. So, obviously with competition, then there comes, limited resources, especially when it comes to dollars and funding. So can either you or both of you kind of speak to, where some of those sources of funding coming today, and where do we think some of those better sources of funding are going to be coming from tomorrow?
Yeah, so are we talking about funding for which initiatives, which programs?
So let's first talk about the biggest one. So our educational needs, really that's kind of the heart and soul of public schools. So where do we find, we're getting most of those funding today, and where do we predict most of that funding is going to come in the future?
Yeah, so overall, we are required by the state to have a local required effort. And those are millages that we have to extend to our community through taxes that come to us and really make up somewhat the bulk of our funding that we receive as an organization. The remainder of the funding comes from the Department of Education through their FAFP program, Florida Educational Finance Program. And that's all based on the number of students that you generate through their full-time equivalency and what classes and courses they take. And then they give us categoricals for Title I schools, professional development. They give us funding for transportation, resources, food and nutrition, and the list continues. Overall, what we've seen historically is underfunding from the from the state and Department of Education. There's always a need for us to be able to serve our children and serve them in the best manner potentially that we can. So looking at the overall platform, our role and responsibility is to be able to stay in confines of what we actually generate from our students and from our community and from the Department of Education in order to serve children and create thriving programs. Where we see ourselves today openly is in a place where historical practices have been implemented and it's caused harm and caught up with us. So now we're in a financial deficit where we've got to make unpopular decisions related to our workforce. So when we talk about, where do we see the funding, we're thankful from the federal government. They've given us CARES Act 1 money, which was $54 million that we spent on learning initiatives, addressing the achievement gap, extended learning opportunities, hardware, software for our children during a pandemic, and also PPE. And we have forecasted another $180+ million that will come to us that will allow us to continue to address COVID expenses. And then there's supposed to be a third CARES Act 3 that will allow us to continue to address mental health innovation along the way. So I think the federal side is doing a really nice job providing us with compensation to be able to serve children during a pandemic and to address many, many deficits that we currently have. But I think overall, we got to continue to push Tallahassee to properly fund education so that we can provide a robust experiences for our children and pathways inside and outside of our classroom all the way through apprenticeships to make certain that they have the technical skills to be successful along the way.
So, yeah. And Nico, do you mind if I also jump in on this?
Yeah, please. Yep.
And the state funding, this is historically true. I mean, we really can't always rely on what will happen from Tallahassee in terms of money. We want the fair playing field. Perhaps we're not right now experiencing that. So then you have to say, well, what other streams of money do we have coming in? And let me just take a snapshot also to a question that just came in about the competitiveness for businesses. Our schools, the more they are functioning with full fidelity, the better shape we'll be able to serve the community, and people will desire, of course, to buy houses, and businesses will desire to come. So having said that, how do we keep our schools in a very viable fiscal situation if the reality of defunding from the state continues? So the first thing we did in 2018, you probably remember this, I harped on this referendum. This is like the idea of getting money for delayed maintenance and possibly eventually new schools, right? So about 10 million a month we're collecting on the average, 9 to 10 million. The COVID didn't really put too much of a dent. So we get one stream from our referendum, and that's for your plant again next to you. Remember, it sunk. I think part of the building just caved in, and then we had to put air conditioning in our new roof. The maintenance is continual with our older schools, especially. Secondly, we do the impact fees. That was in 2019, where I'm proud to say the PTA, Betty Castor, myself, the Tampa Bay Times, probably you all too helped us with getting that. So the more houses, we want more housing sales, the more impact monies we get. And last is something that I know Superintendent Davis will do, is begin what is very necessary is businesses such as yourself, Tomlin Properties, all the Tampa Bay Realtors, all the business entities to be on an advisory board to help make decisions with us and hopefully help fund some of the needs that we have. And that's, that's not unlike we had with previous superintendents, but we want to work in that direction as well. So, I'm always looking at the big picture, and I know Superintendent Davis may want to remark on that too, because that, Nico, I think about you all the time in terms of Jesuit and what they have done, and their alumni, etc. Always an influx of monies to take care of building expansions and making Jesuit more competitive. So I think matching businesses, their desires to see what is going on in schools. We have the CEOs in our schools now. The business alliances are critical in our public education for no other reason. Great role models, but also another stream of hopefully some funding.
Sure, absolutely. And Superintendent Davis and Ms. Gray, you both mentioned, how kind of the real estate industry and the schools often work together. You mentioned about the millage, you talk about the impact fees. So Superintendent Davis, can you kind of talk a little bit more about that, the relationship between the local housing market, the real estate market, and the school districts? How do they often work together from that perspective?
I said earlier, the education is the foundation to all. When we talk about attracting newcomers to our city, to our region, education has to be thriving, it has to be vibrant, and that's only going to positively impact the real estate within our region. And holistically, we have to be linked to the realtors. We should be, having ongoing conversations about our projectability of our builds, what programs, what new initiatives that we're offering, what our thriving programs will be, what are our pathways for continuity, so that realtors can be able to articulate and forecast to newcomers and those who aspire to transition to this area what to expect from a educational system. Overall, a thriving real estate marketplace is beneficial to everyone within our community. It helps us, drive enrollment to attract families who want to attend Hillsborough County Public Schools. And overall, recently, impact fees increased, providing our district with much needed funding that we can help us continue to build and grow and expand. And the more active our new home market becomes, the more our district can collect and plan accordingly to provide more schools to our growing population. So, overall, we have to be joint, side by side in this process. We look forward to being greater partners and articulating what's going on within our communities, and so that we can be thriving. But the partnership has to exist, and it has to be healthy.
That's good. Well, we appreciate that. So you kind of mentioned, as the real estate market grows, as we get more competitive from a business landscape, obviously people and businesses come here. But when we look at where those people and those businesses are coming from, and we stack ourselves up against cities like Orlando and Jacksonville and Nashville and other cities, from the school board perspective, how do we look at the counties around us? But then also those other major metropolitan areas in the state, like Orlando, sure, Jacksonville, Miami, sure, from a school district perspective, what are some things that we look at, compare and contrast with other districts around the state?
Sure.
To both of you. Yep.
I'll give a brief start, and then Addison, you give a,
yes,
you do something else or even bigger than I. That's such a good question, because we're always compared to three counties: Duval, Orange County, not so much Pinellas or Pasco, because they're quite small. To a degree, Miami-Dade. And, the Orange County demographically match our demographics. The actual pupil size matches ours. But the example differs when you look at this, again, a stream of money. They had referendums, I believe it's for increased teacher pay. So they, no, that's Pinellas has just did a referendum just for increasing teacher pay, and they got it passed. Orange County did for buildings. So some of the counties, because of the state lessening the monies to the school, public schools, had to go out to the public, just like we did with our referendum, and say, hey, we need help. And this is what we will need from you, and that kind of thing. So, counties are important. I know Superintendent Davis will speak on Miami-Dade. The superintendent there is his mentor. But what they're going through is very, we're all kind of similar. We're all in this together. The funding sources and the formula for CARES 2, the formula for the American Rescue Plan, where does the money go? When is it going to happen? A lot of this, although there's federal, obviously, with the American Rescue, but the CARES 2, the CARES 1, that comes from the governor. And so all the superintendents, are very, very aligned with, each other. How and when are we going to get this money? Every one of the districts, the 67 districts we have in this state of Florida, they're all in the same boat with COVID, less FTE, less funding. But some of them are much better doing better financially for two reasons. One, that Addison mentioned, we were tremendously, and you remember the Gates grant, we had so much bureaucracy and, coaches everywhere. That really wasn't sustainable. So we had to remove a lot of those positions. And then, of course, secondly, is the COVID decreasing the FTE, which right now is, has devastated. So with that being said, I'll let, there's more to it than that. But I wanted just to mention that comparison. Superintendent Davis?
Yes, ma'am. And thank you, Ms. Gray. So we're right now the 7th largest school district in the nation, and we're the 3rd largest in the state of Florida behind Miami-Dade and Broward counties. And when you look at who we are, we have 220,000 students that we serve, 25,000 employees that we have internally, and more than 240 traditional schools within our school district. One thing I will say, when you look at the overall district, we are incredibly diverse, and we celebrate that diversity. And we were also named the best employers for diversity by Forbes. Overall, when you look at the educational health of our school district compared to Miami-Dade, compared to Orange County, Orlando area, Jacksonville, Palm Beach, I have to tell you, they have a higher school grade than we have. Those school districts are A-rated, we are B-rated. And openly, and I say this, we have transitioned the last 5 years from number 32 in the state out of 67 school district academically, the number 40. And we had the most underperforming schools, and I say underperforming, that's D's and F's in the state of Florida. When you look at Miami-Dade, they only have one underperforming school. When you look at Orange County, they have 12, and Palm Beach has 4. So when you look at the overall makeup, we have to be able to address the instructional core. So we do a really nice job competing overall with our vibrant programs and pathways that we have internally in Hillsborough County for our high school students. We offer really robust experiences for those students. We got to create that continuity and have that pre-K all the way to 12th grade experience. And we will strengthen that every single day. And this is all about putting systems and processes in place and being able to make certain that regardless of who the child is, regardless of his or her zip code, gender, ethnic background, socioeconomic experience, we will provide a high quality experience for every learner to make certain they have grade level appropriate content. They have high expectations. They are academically engaged, authentically engaged versus compliantly engaged, and they are supported along the way with interventions that help them in so many different ways with inside and outside of our classroom. So right now we need to be in a better spot where we compete with those types of schools. We have openly, we have a great community. People, I come from the Jacksonville area, so the housing market down here is booming, and that's a hats off. We have to catch up educationally to be able to help the realtors and the market value to talk about all the great things that we have going on educationally. We do have great school district, but we've got to make it holistically with every school continues to outperform others in those big metropolitan thriving areas.
Nico, real quick, I just wanted to address the concern about us cutting guidance counselors and the arts. we're not doing that. You know, we know that the arts program draws the eclectic part of this community in so many ways. And the guidance counselors, of course, are needed more than ever with the mental duress that our students and our teachers and our staff are facing. So, you know, I just wanted to make sure, I saw a little comment on there. I just wanted to make sure that I think it was Kim Clace asked that or remarked on it. So,
and I want to say this. So we are going to keep, you know, right now we are overstaffed. We have, without charter schools, we have 188,000 students that we serve. When you look at Broward County, without charter schools, they serve 219,000 students without charters. They have 25,000 employees and we have 25,000 employees. They have 30,000 more students than we do. We have the same number of employees. We have got to drill down to be able to report where our expenditures are the same what we actually generate with from the local required effort along with Department of Education. So hence the reason we've got to make adjustments, but we will be saving, we're 64 counselors over. We will be saving all of our counselors, college and career counselors at our schools to be using you know, mental health dollars to be able to do that because we know how they continue to help. And we also got to be able to, we will never eliminate art, music, and PE at our schools. However, there may be overages of schools that are over the allocation plan that I came in was in place. So we're just going to have to stick to that model, and there will be potential movements of those individuals did not hit our formula, but we will always protect the programs that we have. We know our children have to be a part of that process, and we'll continue to make certain we expand it.
Perfect. Well, thank you both very much for those answers. Kind of leading into a little bit of what you both mentioned there. So when we look at, you know, schools, when we look at, you know, from an employment perspective, and we have growth within Hillsborough County, people moving here, you know, new students, you know, not only coming into Hillsborough County, but presumably coming back into the classroom, you know, in next school year as well. You know, what are those, you know, discussions when you look to see that the school board is growing, the school district's growing, we're adding more students, but we also might be potentially laying off employees. What's that balance and what's that discussion like?
So, you know, we are growing more students because we are growing more openly. We're growing more charter schools as well. We're growing brick and mortar schools that we serve. We opened up 2 schools last year with Belmont and also Sumner in South County because there was a need because our student stations were moving. The issue we have is that when we see an uptick of our overall enrollment, more students are selecting charter schools under our umbrella. So when we lose between 2,500 and 3,000 students to charter schools, then we haven't historically made the adjustments to our staff. So when we, you know, every kid that walks in generates funding. So when we lose that child, we lose that funding. We've got to really reel back. And over the last 5 to 6 years, that hasn't been the case. So it's kind of caught up to us financially. We've got to make some hard, unpopular decisions. So when we look at particular areas such as the South County, it continues to expand. And our role and responsibility is to look at, you know, whether it's Barrington, Rogers, look at Shields. Those are middle schools in Eisenhower that are busting at the seams. And we have, you know, school UU, which is going to be in Watershed coming on board. That will allow us to alleviate those particular areas. But we've got to do a better job identifying schools that are under enrolled and figure out that causation. Is that causation because we don't have a thriving program? Is it because school performance? Is it because we don't have a robust program that's an attractor? Is it because we don't have single families, you know, coming in with small children is it aged out? And be able to think about how to reimagine to be able to attract our students. So they're trying to be very intentional about where we erect any new buildings within our school district. And it looks like South County's particular area and how we maximize our student stations elsewhere as well. But we, like Ms. Gray said, we've got to do a better job being competitive, marketing our plans, telling our stories, and having thriving, you know, and engaging civic leaders, business leaders, community members about how to be an active partner within our educational system where we're walking in concert and telling our stories about the great things we offer.
And just to add to that too, even when we did the impact fees, myself and the various land developers and the PTA, CTA, we work with the board, the county commissioners very closely at that point in time. And I think what we're looking at now for another school to be built in South County. And I know that, Nico, I know that you know that area, Ruskin and all out there it's just growing by leaps and bounds. And we do have Waterset, a school competitive with Waterset will be next summer, K through 8. But we do need another school, and we have a road problem, an infrastructure. So what I'm saying is, in addition to our civic leaders and our partnerships, our business partnerships, we also have to tighten up the ship with our BOCC, our county commissioners, and have them work. We got to work as a team, and that's another. That's something that we all will benefit working together. So that's actually next week. We're going to try to get that alliance where it needs to be, so we can build schools without having so much financial hiccups, such as a dirt road. These are small things, but they're costly to us. So at any rate, I just wanted to throw that in there. That's part of the puzzle that we need to put in place to be successful.
Yep. And you talk about those partnerships between different the business community, the real estate community, the boards. You also mentioned advisory groups that the school board has. Can you go a little bit more detail into that, and really how can our individual members get more involved so they can help, they can spread the word? What are some ways that we can actively participate more in those groups and get more involved?
So advisory groups take place.
Go ahead, Superintendent Davis. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bossy. You want to go?
Well, no, because the framework is not unlike, a big committee, right? It's a committee that would be indicative of the business community, the local government community, parent community, and it would be certainly involving the educational needs of our entire district. And part of the buy-in, of course, with any heartfelt committee is their intentionality of how can we serve the children in the Tampa Bay area the best that we can in terms of education and now mental health as well, right? So the advisory would be meeting. I mean, I would perceive it to be once a month, having it on Zoom, but being thought partners, and that's an expression that Superintendent Davis has, thought partners. But really meaning more than that, but actually finding their way to some solutions. I don't think this is a world now that can serve itself on a lone silo island. I think the interconnectivity of local and state and business, and parental when it comes to education is critical. In all those minds and the reflections of what you all see and what we perhaps don't know, I mean, is so important, and that is what I'm looking forward to. So, with that being said, that's my vision, and I'll let Superintendent Davis, speak on those things.
Yes, thank you. There's so many different committees that we currently have. We have the CAC, which is a community committee that the board interacts with along the way to talk about pressing, advising of our school district to be able to listen, learn, grow. And at the same time, we have advisory boards at every one of our high schools that openly talk about the ongoing pathways that we have, whether it's health science, HVAC, whether it's welding, whether it's aerodynamics, whether it's cybersecurity, you name it, whatever program and pathway we offer, we have advisory boards, and those are individuals whether in that particular career field that really helps us and directs us with revising curriculum, talk about externships, talk about apprenticeships, talk about internships, talk about overall teaching experiences that really help the school district educational partners be able to grow to serve our children in the best manner. So I would say if there's go on our website at hillsboroughschools.org, and if there's a school or pathway that you feel connected to reach out to the principal and allow them to tell them the interest of being a part of that advisory board and really help us to become stronger along the way. So, and from my perspective, anytime anybody wants to reach out to me in my email, I'm super reflective about our practice, and I look forward to growing and listening and learning from each of you in order to get better.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yep.
I think I just had a thought, and I couldn't remember it, but I just know that when we push through any committee such as the CAC, that's the one we have once a month on Monday evenings, you know, there has to be the richness and the voice of the community, because the school principal and any school is equal to the community. In other words, that is what makes the school. So if we don't invite the community, which are the business leaders, those partners, the local government, we only get a slice of the feedback that I, at least from an individual board member, feel is critical for us to serve the needs of, say, your organization. And so I'm hoping that we will open that big committee door and see such faces as I see now. Thank you.
And Ms. Gray, I know you have to jump off here in a little bit. So I'll kind of I'll let you close with a couple things, and then we'll have a couple more questions for Superintendent Davis. But you know, if you had, you know, a magic wand and could essentially wave a magic wand and it's provide the solution that you would need, you know, what's that one big thing that you think the Hillsborough County schools need right now?
Overall,
Okay.
We'll get to you, Superintendent Davis. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go, and then Superintendent Davis, you can follow.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it. Right now, I think we need the partnerships of the community and their voice, and not just on these small threads, not on a Monday, you know, where there's a very limited amount of feedback and input. My wish is for a community advisory, and when I say community, that means business advisory council, however you want to put it. The big vision too, secondly, is I love competition. And I think our schools, I look forward to them championing, the principal that is, championing what he or she feels that they can make a mark to affect the positivity of academic and mental success for the students and the community, and integrate both the community in the schools and the schools in the community. And then I think our competition will be full fidelity. I don't think you can beat that combination of community and school with the principal putting it forth. So if I were a principal, I would love to do, say, teacher training. You know, I would make that the best teacher training school ever, right? And then, you know, we would produce teachers. USF would be our partner in University of Tampa. So I think that's what we should look forward to as well. And that concludes my remarks.
Sounds good. Well, Lynn, thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate it. You know, and again, we look forward to having more of a partnership, being more involved with the school board, with you and the Realtor Association. So again, we thank you very much for coming in today. Superintendent Davis, you know, kind of the same questions, you know, kind of two follow-up questions to that. You know, if you had that magic wand that would, you know, kind of solve a lot of the issues, you know, what would be some of those things that you would wish for?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I'd wish for a money tree. And, you know, coming in when you're, you know, $72 million in the hole in October and you're not making payroll and you had to get a 10 at tax anticipation notation because the practice is inherited and you had to cut 624 positions, it's unattractive. And then we find ourselves in a deficit for over $100 million again of funding, you know, because of past practices, and now I've got to cut close to 1,000 to 1,500 teachers. So, you know, anytime that you impact the classroom, it's never attractive. As superintendent, it's already hard enough to deal with a pandemic. We were building the airplane while it's in the air, but now to be able to make hard decisions that financially to make certain that we protect the integrity and perception of this district, not only for tomorrow, but 5, 10, 15 years down the road, so the Department of Education doesn't take us into receivership. we've got to make unpopular decisions. The second thing is to make certain that we galvanize with every civic leader, partner group, realtor group, builder, organization, company, that really link our arms together to build robust experiences for our students, and for us to really identify what the most attractive jobs are with our futuristic jobs that don't exist today, and what they particularly may be, and build the scope and sequence of work in order to prepare our children to decision make, problem solve, use analytics to be competitors in this future. So all that to say is first for us to have better intentionality with subgroups and partners within this community, because the community is willing, we have to extend the hand to do it.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you very much for that good answer. We're happy to get involved, and we as the Realtor Association, we as individual realtors, we're happy to get more involved and make our difference in our community. We do have a couple quick questions from the Q&A,
Sure.
and then I'll open it back up to you for any final comments. So quick question about personal finance, and life preparedness skills. Can you talk about some of that? Obviously it's important to understand math, English, and history, but can you talk about some of those more, those types of classes and educational offerings that might be offered?
Yeah, so first time ever we're state required to offer financial literacy in 12th grade. It is a graduation requirement moving forward. So this is openly talk about credit score, how to talk about bills, how to register your checkbook, how to be able to not to go, and every time you see, when you're young and you see a t-shirt giveaway for sign up for a credit card, don't do those types of things. I know we've all done it when we were young, and just really so the students really truly understand the financial makeup and how earlier in your life decisions that you make will impact you for so many years to come. So that's a reality right now in our 12th grade. Do we need to expand that into lower grades in the middle school and 9th grade? I think absolutely. We have students that are working, when they turn 15 years of age, 16 years of age, and that's usually, for 9th and 10th grade students that are actively being involved, not only to help them put food and essentials on the table, but also to help their parents as well. So from our side of it, we're trying to do a better job of creating, parent academies, and allowing our parents to be exposed to financial literacy and help them make hard and correct decisions that will lead them to success. But we need more than that. We need to be able to have life skills classes, how to change a tire, how to change your oil, little things that actually matter so our children can be efficient as they transition out of our schools.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for that. So another thing that's important to real estate agents, especially when people are buying or selling homes, is the school district. Which district the home lies in can make a big difference in the value of the property.
Sure.
From a selling perspective, it's certainly a benefit if it's in a good school district versus an average school
Absolutely.
district. So how do we as real estate agents kind of keep up with that as far as, when school district lines might be moving, when new schools are opening, when schools are closing? How do we stay up to date with that?
So I would say let's meet quarterly, and let's do this quarterly. I love to be face to face, and I know that sometimes it's hard in this new world of COVID. We could do it virtually, but it's never the same face to face. I will commit to you meeting on a quarterly basis just to give you an overall update, so we can talk about what's working, what's not, and what we can do differently as an organization, and show you analytics of what we're moving to give you talking points about overall strengths and accomplishments, and at the same time areas of opportunity and where our next projected bills will be. So I'm open to making that happen. Just let me know and we'll get on the schedule and we'll make it a reality.
Perfect. Thank you. And so we got one more question, and then we'll finish it up here. But obviously, the last year with the COVID pandemic certainly taught us a lot. Are there any positive takeaways that we can have from this? If we have to ever go back to remote learning, how do we deal with mental health in the classroom? What are any of those positive takeaways that we could have from this past year?
We've learned so much, and let me say this: our teachers, our support professionals, our leaders, they've been heroic in this process, and they've been so flexible. So mental health from our side of it, we've learned overall that mental health, is needed now more than ever. Some of our families are losing their job; they're being furloughed. They're losing their homes, and we got to be there through that process, because some of this could be really traumatic. So how we have expanded the use of social workers, school psychologists, leveraging school counselors to make that connectivity. Those services will not stop. We'll push Department of Education to have additional categoricals of mental health dollars to do so. We've expanded through telehealth to have that connectivity with those who may need it and are not in our schools. But one thing we learned that one size doesn't fit none. And when we talked about learning solutions, we have a pocket of students that are thriving through remote learning. So redesigning how we extend lessons to our students, how we do it in innovative solutions, through that process. And we've had to be able to find different learning curriculums to be able to address not only the academic divide, but also help with the digital literacy divide as well. So we've done a really nice job in this process. And one thing we've learned is how to leverage social workers. We started the year off with 7,600 students we couldn't find. We leveraged our social workers who went to hotels, houses, they stalked Facebook, they matched siblings. When we found every kid except for 300, we become a model for the state about how we've taken overall beyond action to be able to connect with our families and be able to track down so that our students don't go without education, the essentials to be successful. So a lot of lessons learned. And if we go out for any particular disaster, we're ready to go. We have a sophisticated system now through software platforms. Our teachers have been trained how to make that connectivity. And we have greater preparation than 1 year ago. I promise you that.
Sure, and quite understandably, you started with the role, quite an interesting time. So that's absolutely. So as we wrap up, any final words of wisdom, anything that you would like to leave with us as a Realtor Association, with the school district, and how we can work together?
The biggest thing I would say is thank you for the opportunity. And the more that we're connected, the more that we understand the situation that we're going through, the better we're able to articulate to our families, our newcomers, our community members, about where we are from Hillsborough County perspective. I promise this cohort that we will move to a top 20 school district in the state of Florida and be recognized throughout the nation once we get through this COVID. We've done a lot to put in place instructional frameworks, new curriculums, new professional development, lesson studies to maximize PLCs in our schools, all-inclusive approach this year. So we'll hit the ground running. So I would say, continue to hold us accountable. Continue to push us to make sure we're making sound, fiscal responsible decisions with the organization, and know that, I have cut close to 800 positions since I've been here due to the financial deficit and hole that I inherited. We will have to make some hard decisions in the next few weeks. Know that they're most unpopular. No superintendent wants to have to do this. However, if we don't do it, then the Department of Education will take us over and take us in receivership, meaning they will control the purse string and drive the work. And they don't know our community. They don't know our needs. They don't understand the complexities and the strengths of our school district. And my job is to work where they are not in that process, to further protect who we are and our integrity of our organization. So there will be some hard adjustments that have to be made, but we have to do it in order to continue to be an efficient, reliable organization moving forward.
Well, perfect. Well, Superintendent Davis, thank you very much for coming today on behalf of myself, the Government Affairs Committee, and the Board of Directors here at Greater Tampa Realtors. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for sharing your insights, and we'll hold you to it. We will follow up every quarter to see how the school board is doing, how the district is doing, and so that way we can be more involved and more active in it. So again, we thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your efforts.
Yep. And to all of our attendees, thank you very much for tuning in. If you're interested in learning more about the Government Affairs Committee, we meet the first Friday of every month. Our next meeting is going to be Friday, May 7th. We meet at 9:30. As of now, we're still meeting virtually. So if you want to put it in your calendars now, every first Friday of the month at 9:30 a.m. And if you're interested in learning more about local schools, local county governments, city governments, state and national governments, and how that affects local real estate issues, we would love to have you on board. This concludes our presentation, and we thank you all very much for coming. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.